been talking a lot on other platforms about Palantir, about flock cameras in over 5,000 communities across the United States. Illegally, I might add. Those are illegal. Those cameras are owned by a private company. A fourth grader can hack them. It's been proven time after time after time. The city of Flagstaff, Arizona was the first city to ban flock, and here's the kicker, the police chief agreed with them, calling it an invasion of privacy and a danger to women and children. Sit with that for a couple of seconds. I'm Roy Arthur. This is Unbelievable Reality Podcast, and I've got a handful of topics I want to cover today. I'm going to try to be as concise as I can. If you're a viewer and you've watched other videos before, you know that I will digress and ramble because I just can't help myself. That's part of my being on the spectrum, and it's a broad spectrum, by the way, but I'm okay with it. So, as always, before I start a podcast, I like to recommend a book. This book in particular, this international bestseller, this Pulitzer Prize winner, came out in 2019. It's by Shoshana Zuboff, and it's called The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. If you can get your hands on a copy of this in today's world is a must read. Now, I understand 50% of this country will never ever actually see this book, much less read it, because 50% of this country only reads and comprehends to a 6th grade level, thanks to our education system. A topic for an entirely different podcast. As a father, you know I'm going to get to that sooner or later. This is so eye-opening, though. She goes back to the very beginning of the internet age in the late 1900s and 2000, when Google was barely surviving. They couldn't find a way to make any revenue. The internet companies were dropping like flies. AOL.com, remember that? You've got mail. Was the leading email provider. She goes all the way back to the very beginning and explains how what we thought was going to be a great way to communicate and to share with friends and family really quickly morphed into a surveillance capitalistic business model. And now that level of surveillance capitalism has spiraled completely out of control. I referenced before in a previous podcast, once again, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. You can get a copy of this and you can find the time. This is not a light read. And it's also really scary. It really is really scary how we've all just been lulled into accepting this shit. And now we're in it so deep, we'll never get out. And as AI continues to advance and evolve, this only gets worse. And I spoke in a previous podcast and numerous other posts on Instagram and TikTok about Palantir, Alex Karp's release of his personal manifesto a couple of weeks ago, and how shocking that was, that the CEO of a publicly traded company is so confident in his position and that he is so secure that he would publish his personal thoughts on the homepage for the company's website. This has never ever happened in the history of corporate America. No one has ever done that. It's not so much about what he said, which is scary, repulsive, and bigoted, and just pick an adverb, it applies. It's the fact that he did it. That's what should frighten you. Palantir is in everything. The Food and Drug Administration, ICE, local police, our armed forces. They've been used as the tracking tool for the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, in basically the elimination of the Palestinian state. It's gone. It's eliminated. It's eliminated the home of 10 million people. I believe on a personal level that this is a huge turning point for humanity because we've all looked away. We've all looked away. We've not only looked away, we've allowed it to happen, and the United States of America has actually facilitated that. And I want everyone to understand that people like me and other creators that you're going to see on other platforms are now literally, this is terrifying, putting ourselves at personal risk. Because the algorithm is going through and searching for keywords, and I just said a whole bunch of them. And so we end up on a list. Doesn't really matter now how big or how small you are. That list is growing. What will happen with that? You know, they just passed the, not passed, but Trump issued another executive order making it illegal to talk anti-capitalism, anti-Christian, anti-business, anti-anything. Technically, that's a lawful order. So until that order is rescinded, speaking out comes at great personal risk, and that's just the truth. I am in no way, shape, or form implicating or indicating that this technology is going to be used for malicious reasons. But if we look at the arc of previous technologies and how those technologies have evolved over time, I think it's only reasonable to, at some point, expect that that will definitely be present in policing of American citizens. And I don't know how you avoid that. I literally do not. But I just watched a Sean Ryan podcast the other day. His guest, I cannot remember his name, but he stressed repeatedly, if you have any pictures of your children in particular online, delete them all. From every form of social media. I'm a huge advocate of this. You will never see any photos of my wife or my children anywhere ever, period, the end. I've gone back through my archive as deep as I could to the point where I'm deleting them off of my personal phone. That should tell you a lot. That should tell you a lot. So sit with that. If you get a chance, get a copy of the book, read it. And he's also recently talked about how late stage capitalism, because we are in what can reasonably be assumed is late stage capitalism. Capitalism, it works through two ways, and it always has. From the beginning of the Dutch East India Company in London, back in the 1600s, the very first capitalist company that sold shares ever, to today. Corporations and capitalism has worked on two underlying principles: exploitation of labor, specifically and public, and extraction of resources. As we run out of resources to extract, capitalism is turning more and more to exploitation of its consumer base. That would be you and me, human beings, people, us. You probably noticed it. It's creep. It's the raising of your Netflix subscription. It's the fact that now you not only have to have Netflix, but you have to have Netflix, Hulu, Paramount, Warner, Disney. Everybody has a streaming service. You have to pay for every one of those if you want to watch specific shows. When you add them all together, they're twice as expensive as standard cable used to be, which is why they gave it away for free in the beginning, which was to cause the death of cable. Only 30% of American households still have standard cables. Think about fucking that. And all of that information, by the way, is coming through your Wi-Fi router. You don't own your router. You rent your router. You do not have security on your personal router in your home. You also don't have security on the camera that's installed in your television for you to do things like Zoom, etc. Think about that. Back to the moral of the story. I did a story on the American auto industry. In 2027, by law, every new car sold in the United States of America has to have biometric surveillance technology installed. That measures eye movement, heartbeat, pulse, driving position, temperature, cameras. There's at least 5 to 9 cameras, depending on the vehicle and the automaker, surveilling your very physical motions as well as recording all of your conversations. All of that data is going to a third party. That data isn't going to a centralized database. Each automobile manufacturer has their own data, and they're selling that data directly to the auto insurance companies. If you've seen a bounce in your rates of late, you might scratch your head and wonder why. I just told you. But now you have to pay for subscriptions. If you want Apple Music on your car, you got to pay Ford or Chrysler or GM for that. If you want to have your seat warmers work, you got to pay a subscription for that. If you want to have a diagnostic check done outside of the dealership, you got to pay a subscription for that. I mean, on and on and on. So not only do you now have a car payment, but you also have an insurance payment, and then they've stacked subscriptions on top of that. That's exploitation reaching into every corner. These are examples of how we are literally being nickel and dimed to death, whether it's the food industry, the insurance industry, the healthcare industry, the automobile industry, the airline industry, the clothing industry, the clothing and apparel industry. Everywhere that an additional cost can be added, it's being done. And we are literally being bled dry. This is a shocking statistic. 50% of 30-year-olds in the United States have no path to home ownership at all. They simply cannot afford a home. To me, this is really a personal issue. I have children in adulthood who want to purchase their first homes that have absolutely no means to do so, nor do I have the necessary means to afford to be able to support them in that endeavor. That's what's happened to our housing market. Think about it. We're turning into a renter-based country. Home ownership was the golden goose. It was the ultimate gain of the middle class through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the aughts. That's what everybody strove for, a job that paid you enough to have 2 cars, own a house, and have 2 kids. That's kind of a summary of it, but in a cheap way. Those goals are now unattainable. The average new car payment in the United States is $600 a month. $600 a month. Health insurance for a family of 4, even with the Affordable Care Act, is still averaging $1,200 a month for a family of 4. And with the recent cuts to Medicare and Medicaid, that's only going to get more expensive. And hospitals are closing because they relied on that funding from Medicare and Medicaid to stay open. So one of the other things that's happening in late stage capitalization is consolidation. Monopolies are back, and they're back in mega force. They're back in a way that this country's never seen them before. And in the digital age, a great example is this. 10 companies own the entire food supply in the United States of America. 10 of them. I have a list, but I'm not going to go through it because there's not enough time in this video. 10 companies own 500 brands. So when you go to the store and you think you're buying shit, I don't know, Cheerios, Quaker oatmeal, Lucerne butter, Tillamook cheese, produce, grapes, oranges, etc. Those individual products are owned by 10 corporations. What that does is it allows them to price fix. One of the things that's happening, again, another segue, one of the things that's happening, you've probably noticed this, is that since COVID, and the supply restrictions, when the boat stopped showing up, so the shit stopped getting to the shelves, they raised the prices. Have you not understood and noticed that they never lowered them back down again? Because they haven't reached market tolerance. Market tolerance is a marketing term that is literally what it says. How much will the market, that would be you and I, they love to call us consumers, market, euphemisms to make it not personal. How much will we pay before we say, hell no? That's why prices haven't dropped down, because we haven't reached market tolerance. There's another thing out there that's a really neat trick of late stage capitalism, and it's called planned obsolescence. Planned obsolescence means I sell you a product knowing it's going to break in a specific period of time, so you will have to buy a new one. Apple is famous for this. If you own an iPhone, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've had the same thing happen. Battery life disappeared. You basically got to buy a new one every 2 years. Pretty much the same thing now for MacBooks and any type of PC. About 18 months into the function of a HP or an Apple PC or any of them, Dell, Health, pick one. Within 18 months, that thing starts to run slower, and then it just crashes, and when it does, you can't fix it. That's another new trick that capitalism and corporations have discovered. We sell you shit that you can't fix because we don't make the parts anymore. Because we own the company that makes the part for the products we sell. It's called stacking. That's how monopolies also work. They own the final product, but they own all of the pieces, all the companies below that supply the necessary elements to create the product. That's a true monopoly. Nelson Rockefeller figured this out in the 1900s, the late 1800s with Standard Oil. And that's why Teddy Roosevelt crushed Standard Oil. In addition, he also crushed J.P. Morgan, the Chase family, etc. They were called barons. Robber barons was the phrase in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. And by breaking up those monopolies with the first antitrust laws in American history, it gave way to the rise of legalized unionization. Unions. No matter what anybody says, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Unions are the only way to protect the American worker. Without numbers, without consolidation, the individual worker is powerless. Much like the individual person in the United States is powerless. Without a group, a community, a political party to support your ideas and values, you're screaming into the void. That was one of the things that was so attractive about social media. It gave the individuals a voice to be heard. That was the lure that really got us all engaged. I am as guilty as anybody else because here I am shooting a podcast. They dangled money on top of that now in the last decade. It's created a whole new wave of quote-unquote business owners. My version of doing business is small. I was a small business owner in the publishing industry for 20 years. I did business with my clients, other small business owners, face to face, with a written contract and a handshake. And then I delivered them a physical product they could actually touch and feel and read. So that's my interpretation of business. Small businesses have to operate under a completely separate set of rules than mega corporations. Amazon just laid off 16,000 people this week. There's not a mention of it anywhere. 16,000 people. That means 16,000 families' lives have just been disrupted. As a small business owner, you have 4, 5, 6. The biggest I ever got, I had 12 people working for me at one time. To let one of those people go, hurt so much. I hated it. I hated firing people. I hated letting people go because I knew them. I knew them. I knew about their families. I knew about their friends. I actually cared. I wanted them to succeed because their success was my success, and I never forgot that. Big business never knew that. Big business doesn't know that, and big business doesn't care. That's why there's such a rush for automation and such a rush to get AI into the workforce, because AI never complains. AI never takes a vacation. AI never takes a sick day. AI never has a baby. AI never has a death. Robots never stop working, and they never complain. This is a Jeff Bezos' wet dream, to be blunt. His biggest goal is to run Amazon with no people. He said it over and over again. Elon Musk is right in line with him. So is Bill Gates. The list goes on and on. Larry Ellison and his son, the Warner Brother Paramount merger, which in 100 years ago would never have even been discussed because it was illegal. But since 1973, the Republican Party solely, with the complicit action of the Democratic Party, because everybody's bought and paid for, has chipped away at regulation after regulation after regulation and destroyed those antitrust laws that provided protection for American workers and therefore people like you and me to be able to buy a house, to pay our bills, send our kids to school, and drive a decent car. Fuck, I've gone on too long. This happens to me. Forgive me, what I don't cover in this podcast, hopefully I'll be able to cover in the next podcast. All of this leads me, though, to a couple of points. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm in recovery and have been for quite some time. And it was a long, long struggle to get there and stay there. On and off, on and off. And shit like what's going on in the world today sends people that are new, fresh in recovery back out looking for a way to turn off their minds because it's too much. One of the things I learned in all my years of being in and out of AA, being in and out of therapy, being in and out of every different type of treatment possible to recover from my illness, which happened to be alcoholism. There's lots of other illnesses though. There's overeating, there's addiction to porn, there's addiction now to this thing. Oh boy, how many are addicted to their phone? Man, I've got to tell you, I think the number of people that are addicted to their phones makes the alcoholics in this country and the world kind of look insignificant. But the shit that's going on right now imperils every recovering addict out there. So if you're in recovery, you just started being in recovery, remember that without recovery, I know this personally, this is my story. Without recovery, we don't have life. We don't have life. What we have is a prolonged suicide. And that's truth. Just like a company that constantly overspends, you're just in a prolonged bankruptcy. If you're confused about what that means, look at our government right now. The United States of America is in a prolonged bankruptcy. We just haven't figured it out yet. And we've only been in the position of superiority that we're in today since the end of World War II. That's another podcast. One thing I'm going to say, man, it'd be nice if Americans actually knew their history, the real history. Not the history that we're taught, that the government, they want us so desperately to believe. We're not the magic country. We're not the greatest ever. We're not superior. We're not unique. We're an experiment. And right now it looks like the experiment is getting ready to fail. All of this goes together in this final blow to where we're at right now. The war in Iran is having consequences right now. But we, the people, the average people, the people that get up and go to work every day, the people, the parents, the people that are concerned about our environment, the people that are concerned about the water that we drink, etc., etc., the ramifications of this heedless, irresponsible endeavor have not hit home yet. It hasn't happened yet. It's beginning. The first thing we'll see is rising fuel prices. And we're already seeing them. Gas, and that's also electricity, natural gas to heat your house. Pay attention to those three things. Food costs that are already high are about to go through the roof. One of the things about the Strait of Hormuz, which I'm sick of hearing about, but we gotta, is through that passage, 30% of the world's fertilizers travel. That's the fertilizer that's needed to grow crops in the world. Not just here, the whole world. And we've so depleted our soils through the way that we have industrialized farming. Without those fertilizers, we literally cannot grow food. We cannot grow food. And the food that we are growing is about to get astronomically expensive. This is just truth, not trying to scare you. So, think about that. Think about that. If you can, I would definitely stock up on certain fundamental things. Canned vegetables, goods, pastas, rice, beans, coffee. If you're a coffee drinker like I am, and you can afford to just keep putting bags in the freezer or wherever the fuck you put them, do it. Coffee's about to get crazy. And I actually just saw somebody on another Sean Ryan podcast say that there's a chance gas in California might even go to $15 a gallon, which is, I can't even imagine it. Long and short, we're in a very, very unique and turbulent time in this country. As parents, our number one job, my number one job, is to take care of my children and provide them an opportunity to reach their goals and dreams in their lives. That's the responsibility you take on as a parent. And by the way, if you don't have children, don't give parents advice because you just sound like an asshole. Because you are an asshole. Because you have no fucking idea what you're talking about. If you choose not to have children, by all means, that's your choice. Quote unquote, it's a free country. Maybe. But that's still a personal choice. Feel free to make it. Just keep your business, and keep your fucking business out of my business. Back to what I was saying. As a parent, all of this is horribly concerning. And that's what I'm going to talk about and keep talking about. I'm a Roy Arthur. This is Unbelievable Reality Podcast. As always, if you don't like what I say, hey, fucking don't listen. But if you do, comment, share, support, subscribe. Check out Roy Arthur P on Instagram, Roy Arthur on TikTok, also Spotify and Patreon. Take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, keep your circle small and tight. We need to.